everybody here.
Recording started.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm James Glapa-Grossklag from College of the Canyons. I'm pleased to be here today to share information on a topic I'm calling How to Open a Textbook, a discussion of the future of open content delivery. And I want to say how exciting it is to be at this conference this year. Hi Doug, come on in. With so much emphasis on open learning. It's really a phenomenal testament to open education, to the progress that open education has made in the past half dozen years or so, and a testament to the vision of the folks involved in putting together the conference program. I appreciate that. And I want to also greet the folks in CCC Confer land. And thanks CCC Confer for arranging. Excuse me 1 second. Too many beans at lunch. Pardon me, folks. My compliments to the CCC Confer folks for arranging this. I really appreciate it. And also, as Doug Hirsch mentioned this morning, compliments to the folks in the Chancellor's office who have the wisdom to continue the contract with CCC Confer, making this tool available to the folks in the California Community College system. When the keynote, Mr. Hargarden was speaking this morning about riding the wave, I thought that was a great image for so much of what we're all experiencing in educational technology, and particularly those of us who are involved in open education. And then, I love the image of the tidal wave, the image of negotiating the cultural shift. And then when he challenged us to think about what we're doing to ride that wave, that we should be tweeting, or we should be blogging, or we should be creating, this personal online experience or online presence. I thought about my own household and the blogger in my household, who's my 8-year-old boy, my 8-year-old son. He's the blogger in my household. And what he blogs about is his online computer games. He blogs because he wants to participate in creating pathways for his friends through the online computer worlds in which he spends his free time. He's part of that explosion of participatory content that the keynote was talking about before, and that perhaps Michelle's going to talk about tomorrow, if I can guess based on her title. She's going to talk about this explosion of participation. What does it mean for us to be educators in the midst of this participatory explosion? So that's sort of the framing that I bring to this is gee whiz, this stuff really is happening, and I see it with my 8-year-old. Before I dive into the meat of what I'm going to talk about today, I want to acknowledge the support of the U.S. Department of Education, particularly a FIPSI special focus grant that's enabled us to do the work that we've been doing at College of the Canyons that I want to share with you this afternoon. Today's takeout menu or outcome should be that as we move along, I'd like for you to consider the motivations for alternatives to textbooks, learn about the goals of our OER grant, identify the basic steps that would be involved in creating a content playlist. What we think College of the Canyons is sort of the appropriate way for us to balance that tension between structure and openness. And throughout the presentation, to please contribute your thoughts about open content delivery. So please chime in, raise your hand, contribute as we move along. I also wanted to say that this discussion takes place within what I think is an extremely exciting time for open education. Many of you are, I think, familiar with the U.S. Department of Labor, mammoth U.S. Department of Labor grant program that is going to fund community colleges to the tune of $2 billion over the next 4 years, a component of which will fund open educational resources, and all content coming out of that $2 billion investment by the federal government must be Creative Commons licensed. That is a huge milestone in the open education movement. The federal government saying, if you're going to create content focused on workforce development, retraining of workers, you name it, not something to do with an online class, not something to do with technology training, but if you're going to create anything with these federal dollars, it has to be Creative Commons licensed, it has to be shareable. That's a phenomenal turn, I think, for the open ed movement. And recently in Council of Higher Ed, there was a nice piece about OER that turned OER as a movement that increasingly looks like the future of higher education reform. So lots of good stuff happening out there. And again, following on the keynote today, we see that cultural shift happening, or at least we feel the tension, I think, between the structure, the closed structure, and the open excitement. The question that we've asked ourselves at College of the Canyons is, to what extent do we think the textbook's going to last forever? There's been a lot of great work done in community colleges on producing open textbooks. Foothill to Anza Community College District in particular, under the leadership of Judy Baker and Una Daly and Jackie Hood, they've done an awful lot to create open textbooks, create and share open textbooks. And that's a terrific project. We've got folks at College of the Canyon, faculty who are using those textbooks that they've created, the College Open Textbooks have created, to benefit students, teaching with them right now. At the same time, though, we are asking ourselves, are we going to bet the farm in a sense on open textbooks? How long do we think open textbooks or textbooks, that structure, how long do we think that structure is going to be around? We know that today's textbook is made of lots of paper, lots and lots of paper. How much? Think about this, and if fees go up in California, it's going to be a little bit of a smaller proportion, but still going to be pretty substantial. So say a student spends $180 on a textbook for a course, maybe $30 on a textbook supplement, just north of $200. That ballparking kind of sound familiar to those who you teach? Yeah. Yeah, assuming it's just one textbook, right? So, this might be on the low end of an estimate. Then our course in a California community college is going to cost around $78. Again, that might go up in the fall. But in this scenario, conservative estimate, the textbook and the supplement represent almost 3/4 of the cost of the course. And there's a question that always strikes me at this point when I look at these numbers, and that is, what kind of a fiction are we telling ourselves in California community colleges or in public higher education when we say we're affordable, we believe in access, we believe in everybody getting in and getting a chance? Well, baloney. If this is the structure that we work with, that we accept every time we adopt a textbook, then we're really not accessible. Rory, comment?
I think you can get away with charging $180 per textbook on a required course. But if you're talking about CTE courses and things like that, the minute you start to go over $100 for textbooks, all inclusive, you start to notice a drop in enrollments.
Interesting. An interesting point. I'm going to repeat this for your comment for the Confer audience, and that is that while you can probably get away with a $180 textbook in a lot of transfer courses, in CTE courses, when you get north of $100, you notice a drop-off in enrollment. That's an interesting point. That's a good point, Rory. Thank you. At any rate, though, I think still we're not really being honest with ourselves about this access mission if we just accept this structure. We just say, okay, we're going to charge all this money, or we're going to take these books that cost all this money and expect our students to buy those books. We're not really being honest with ourselves. So what are some of the motivations to find alternatives to textbooks? Cost is one. Access, right? That's a big one. I'm fortunate to work in an institution in which our chancellor says open educational resources are a social justice issue. We believe that institutionally we have to pursue this as a measure of our commitment to social justice. That's tremendous. Not everybody's in that situation. What are some other reasons or motivations that you can think off the top of your head to pursue alternatives?
The timeliness of the content.
Great. Can you elaborate on that? Timeliness of the content was the contribution from the floor. What? Could you elaborate on that?
Just the publishing cycle of the Macariel's cycle for getting a book written, vetted, material produced, and then distribution.
Sure, the publishing cycle of a commercial publisher might not get materials out there in a timely fashion, particularly if you're talking about some disciplines, maybe CTE disciplines. My academic field is history. Well, if I'm teaching European history, not that much has changed, right? But if you're talking business, a lot of different disciplines you can think of.
About what a great company Enron is and your textbook, you know.
Comment from the floor. Comment from the floor was that it's great in a business textbook to read about what a great company Enron was, well, or Enron is. What are some other motivations to pursue alternatives to traditional textbooks? Can you think of? Doug?
Possibly the quality and consistency. I'm thinking that if you have a textbook that's created by a number of expert authors, and it may have more consistent adoption of that single platform, single book, and then they're teaching more similar. I don't know if that's good.
Great. That's a really great observation. I think I'll repeat it for the audience. Quality and consistency of the material. If you have a number of authors participating in creating material, you're more likely to increase adoption across a number of courses, which could result in a better student experience or more consistent student experience. Michelle?
Well, when you just move away from print media, it opens the door for rich media integration within the content. So it's no longer a textbook, it's content that can be accessed mobilely from a mobile device, all kinds of opportunities there for engaging students in different ways. Absolutely.
As you move away from a traditional print textbook, you're opening up the door for a lot more rich media and rich experience on the part of the participants. Rory?
There's also an articulation issue. Cal States and the UCs like to see books that they recognize, and they're really apprehensive about going with unknown media. They've been long suspicious of professors' syllabi and professors' notes being printed and distributed as the course content. And so they want to see something from a recognized publisher that they can point to and say, this is a standard that we can accept.
Good comment from the floor. Interesting or important comment from the floor about articulation standards. That in community colleges we want to be sure that our courses articulate with the CSUs and the UCs so that our students can transfer. And there's a concern: will those institutions accept syllabi or course outlines that don't have recognized publishers behind their material? And the answer is, I can speak to the system-wide approach to it in the statewide academic senate publication, the Rostrum. In fall of 2009, there was an article published jointly by somebody from the community college system, the CSU system office, and the UC office of the president, stating that yes, this kind of material is acceptable for articulation. No, it should not be just a random collection of links. Yes, it should add up to something, and that's in the hands of local curriculum committees as other curricular issues are as well. So that's a really important concern. We want to make sure that our students can move on seamlessly. But at the system level, there's been a lot of work, a lot of conversation going on, encouraging local institutions to recognize that it's okay.
Well, it just seems, getting back to the more positive aspect, it just seems like the course and the textbook almost becomes one thing. It's an integrated kind of situation with your course management system being integrated with the textbook, and you can't really operate one without the other.
Absolutely. Great point.
It really has to be part of the course management system.
Yeah, building off of Michelle's comment, that if once you open up the textbook or move away from a traditional textbook, you're moving much more in the direction of fully integrating the content with the course. That there's much more opportunity for that integration of student experience, the content and the experience. Great ideas. And I think that also goes back to, again, this whole idea of participation. My 8-year-old, he's very happy to get an official publication from the makers of his video games, but he's equally happy to participate in creating that publication.
Well, I suppose if you don't have a backpack full of $180 textbooks, it's easier to use your skateboard.
It's easier.
Right. I mean, it's so easier for students if they can carry one device. If we're talking about moving from a physical paper, non-green, textbook to an electronic media, then they could theoretically be carrying just a single device on which all of it.
Great, absolutely. So as you move away from a backpack full of heavy traditional textbooks, you make students more mobile. You give them a better opportunity to move around. It's easier for them to carry one device. It's all going to be in the iPad or the tablet. Absolutely, yeah. That's what we're all looking for. Well, these are great contributions. I appreciate that. Those are the kinds of thoughts that certainly have informed our work at College of the Canyons on our playlist project. Let me talk specifically about our project, the goals of our project a little bit. And when we go into this accepting that, yes, a textbook does provide some structure and content, that balance between the closed structure and the completely open freedom, we recognize that does give some guidance to the instructors, and the instructors like to have that guidance in courses. But what we're focusing on is what I want to speak about here is our second goal, and that is developing playlists of content to supplement or replace textbooks. And why playlists? Well, when we even say the word playlist, what does that conjure up an image of, or what does that refer to? iTunes, right? Does anybody remember this? I don't know if those of you who grew up in Southern California, the Sam Goody record store, anybody remember those? Are they still in business anymore? A couple of them might still be in business. Real record stores. I don't know if you can read the arrow circle. The circle is around going out of store closing, right? We know what happened to the traditional music business. We know what's happening to the traditional newspaper business, the traditional book publishing business. We know that this is happening not just because of cost, but also because of that question of choice. People want to have choice in how they arrange their content. You want to have choice in how you arrange your music. You want to have choice in how you arrange your experiences, your learning experiences as well.
How does that differ from a list of links?
Great question.
Isn't that really a list of links?
Perfect segue. Thank you. Question was, how does that differ from a simple list of links? What we're doing at College of the Canyons with our playlist concept is saying, yes, we're going to utilize some open source content that already exists, but we're going to collect it and give it a more sound academic-like structure. So we'll walk through this for a second. Let's say we're working with psychology content. We've got an intro to psych course. We might find on existing OER repositories, Merlot, Connections, the Orange Grove, NROC, and on, we might find really helpful material that would help us cover units 1, 3, 5, and 7 in our intro to psych course. We're working with faculty members to identify that content and then to write introductory text, to write learning outcomes and unit objectives specific to their course or specific to the way that course is taught at College of the Canyons that meets the requirements of our particular local department. But utilizing content, open content that's been found, again, on Merlot, Connections, Orange Grove, College Open textbooks, so on and so forth, on OER repositories where the content's been vetted, where it's been peer-reviewed in one way or another. Then we've got from, let's say, the Chapter 1 material, our faculty member will write transition text, the stuff that gives that meat, well, not the meat, but the content that gives texture and context and propels the students through the material. Then we'd insert some media, whether it's existing media that has been created by someone else, or it's media that we're creating with our faculty members. We're inserting some media there, having some opportunity for students perhaps to contribute their own media. Then again, the faculty member would go back, write more transition text, and then insert perhaps content that's been found on another OER repository for chapters 2, 4, and 6, and so on. Although, since we initially conceived this, I think a lot of you know McGraw-Hill, I think it is now, has announced that they're opening up all of their web-based resources, all of their web-based content to be adopted for free. Does that ring a bell with anybody? Not McGraw-Hill? Who was it? One of the major publishers out there. So I apologize. It's not McGraw-Hill.
McGraw-Hill is integrated with Blackboard in some fashion.
Okay, but it is. Prentice Hall. There aren't that many publishers out there that are left, but I know that one of the major publishers recently announced that they were opening up for adoption for free all of their online content, whether or not you adopted their books in your class or not. So there's a movement, a little bit in that direction. There's a movement in the publishing world as well. Now, the reasons why we use the playlist and use this concept, in addition to this whole participatory nature that we've been talking about, a lot of great content is already out there. First of all, as I mentioned, there are great repositories out there. We also think that we know from experience, when we go to faculty members and say, hey, you buy this OER deal, you buy that, great, you're committed to it, great. You want to write a textbook on your own? Not very many people are jumping up and down. In addition to all of their other work, we don't have a lot of folks jumping up and down saying, yeah, I want to tackle that whole textbook concept. Isn't happening very much on our campus or at all. We believe that in our experience that faculty are, however, very anxious to share their expertise. They are anxious to connect with other colleagues in the field. They are anxious, after having taught developmental courses for 10 years, they are anxious to get back into a little bit of research, a little bit of writing, a little bit of scholarly dialogue, but they're not going to sell their lives short for the next year by diving into a textbook project. But they would like to share some of what they've been doing, and they'd like to polish their scholarly chops once again. So in our case, we believe that one of our goals is also to support faculty creativity. Right? We want to be there for our faculty to help them participate in scholarly dialogue and participate in creative activities. And we think also this is one of the ways that they can do so, or that we can support them in doing so. So it's a little bit easier for them to bite that off. We think that the fundamentals of this technique, this assembly technique, are already kind of familiar to folks. If you're putting together your course, whether it's an online course or your materials for an on-campus course, you're used to mixing, matching different materials. You're used to grabbing YouTube clips now. You're used to grabbing and photocopying journal articles. You're used to doing a lot of different things and putting different things into your course already. So it doesn't seem that daunting to our faculty to take on these kinds of discrete, smaller tasks as a whole textbook would be. Yes, Michelle?
Ken in virtual room said that you were mentioning OER repositories at some point. So do you have a list of links of approved repositories?
Great question. I will type that in at the end.
Okay.
I don't have a slide on that, but I will certainly be happy to type those in. That's a great idea. Thank you. So as I said, we started our project in 2009. We've been focusing on building individual content objects and larger. We've got a couple of larger projects. One is called Building the Scientist, in which we're working with science faculty, philosophy faculty, psychology faculty to create playlists of content that would be utilized in science courses, focusing on the soft skills that scientists need, the presentation skills, the writing skills, the research skills for scientists that they would need beyond the laboratory to succeed. Also, a whole set of guided, what we call guided learning activities, supplemental learning activities, grammar brush-ups, computational brush-ups, research brush-ups, and so on, that a lot of faculty have been involved in. And we've developed these things based on requests from or interest from the faculty, so we're very happy to go out there and work with faculty on providing the structure, providing the guides, providing the media production staff in response to their ideas for different topics. Some of the challenges that I'd like to share that might resonate with some of you, some of the challenges in working with folks on campus to get these OER projects going, as you can imagine, is incentivizing this kind of work. How do you incentivize this kind of work and make it sustainable? If we take a whole bunch of money from a grant and throw it at the faculty for a semester or 2 semesters, that's great for a semester or 2 semesters, but what do you do next? How do you keep that going? How can you make it sustainable? And even if you have folks who are willing to do it for low cost or no cost, how do you integrate that into a regular workload? Do you get institutional reassigned time for this? Do you get professional development credit for the faculty for this? Is this recognized as part of the tenure and evaluation process? These kinds of institutional, cultural incentives that can often help people go the extra mile. Those are some of the challenges we face, but we've been successful to a large extent, again, because our leadership, our executive leadership, believes this is a helpful, a very worthwhile project. One of the particular challenges we've had is working with our campus bookstore. Our campus bookstore is a private vendor. It's a third-party vendor. Institutionally, we like the $1.5 million that come to our bottom line through our arrangement with the bookstore. That's great, especially in these times. Institutionally, we like having a place where we can buy a T-shirt, buy a cola and a snack during the day. Those are all good things. We want to have a campus store. At the same time, we want to find alternatives to traditional textbooks without threatening the business model of the store that we perceive to be a partner to the district. So there's been a lot of education going on, a lot of conversations going on back and forth, a lot of awareness raising. I've learned a lot about the bookstore contract. I've learned a lot about their margins and a lot about what percentage of their revenue comes from merchandise versus from the books. We've had a lot of very fruitful conversations. They've learned about our motivations with open educational resources as well. We think, this is very tentative, but we think that our medium-term goal will be for our college store to install print-on-demand kiosks. So for students who are using open source materials and want to print, and those are a couple of ifs, there are a couple of conditionals there, then they'll be able to utilize the services of our campus store at a low cost. That keeps our campus store in the game. They don't feel as though we're completely going around them. They don't feel as though we're antagonistic toward them. And I kind of suspect they won't have a lot of business. There won't be a lot of folks who want to come in and print out this collection of materials. There might be some, and if they do it through the bookstore, that's terrific. So I think that's the middle path that we're going to go down, so that we sort of agree to work on it together and not in an antagonistic way. And in the open education community, there are a lot of institutions that are antagonistic to their campus stores, and that's a very touchy proposition, I think, depending on the kind of structure you have. If you're running your campus store yourself, the institution is, the conversation might be completely different. Sandy, had a question?
The model you're talking about sounds like flatworldknowledge.com. So I'm wondering, you're not kind of reinventing the wheel or doing something that maybe most community colleges may not be able to undertake?
Great question. A member of the audience points out that the model I'm describing sounds a lot like what Flat World Knowledge does. And Eric Frank from Flat World Knowledge was one of the pre-conference speakers. It's a very interesting model. What they're doing is engaging authors and paying the authors to create really high-quality textbooks that students can print, can download. The similarity would certainly be that print-on-demand option. Definitely, it is similar in that sense. And if Flat World Knowledge gains traction at College of the Canyons, then our campus bookstore would have the ability to be part of that game as well. I think the playlist model that we're promoting to harvest or harness existing OER objects and add your own original content is a bit different than that. But your comment, I think, raises the larger question, and that is how many smaller streams of open content production do we really need? right? If every institution takes on an open content production project, goodness, in California we have 112 open Psych 1 books. Do we need that? Not really. Certainly we don't need that. So I think it's a really good, your comment points to a really important issue in the open ed movement, and that is, at what point are we going to cease creating a lot of smaller projects and start pulling the resources together? I hope that a project like that will emerge from the Department of Labor grant competition. I don't know if that will be the outcome. I hope that will be the outcome, is that the federal resources will be able to get some movement towards that unifying project.
It would make sense because we're trying to bring our courses, our community college courses, in alignment so that students can transfer to a state college or university, and those courses will be accepted. So we're trying to create an overall model for the descriptions.
Right. And again, how many art history ones, or U.S. history ones, or whatever? How many of those do we really need? The individual instructor experience or the individual instructor arrangement of the student interaction might differ between 112 community colleges, but do we really need 112 different texts? No, we don't. So it's a great issue, and I don't know what the solution is to that one. Yes, sir.
I just looked at the model curriculum for introduction to business and
the AB 1440.
Yeah, the 1440 model curriculum, and one of the example textbooks was Flatwell, College Introduction to Business.
Interesting.
Just say it. I don't know how it gets on there.
Yeah, there was an interesting comment from the floor here that the model plan curriculum for AB 1440, the AB 1440 business track in California community colleges.
Class it was. Now that I think about it, but there was one of the business classes had a flat world.
That one of the business classes included in that transfer curriculum has a flat world knowledge textbook. Are any colleges here using flat world knowledge content? A couple colleges are using flat world content. It's a very, very interesting model. I'd buy stock if I had the money to buy stock. I'd probably buy stock in them. But
tough to make a business model out of it.
Yeah. So again, we're sort of at this, to use a cliche, at this tipping point. It's this tension between the structure and the openness. At College of the Canyons, we're certainly not comfortably up on that tidal wave, riding that tidal wave. The keynote today gave us the image of Michelle riding on top of that tidal wave, tweeting along, comfortably smiling and waving to people and just feeling so comfortable up there. We're not at that point at College of the Canyons with developing OER. I don't want to give that impression. We are committed to being up there, but it is a messy project. It is a messy project, and to create content is a messy project. To create it in a sound way that meets articulation requirements, that incentivizes faculty, that doesn't antagonize your campus vendors, and that utilizes resources in an efficient way is a messy business. And we don't have any perfect answers to that, but we're pleased to be negotiating this cultural shift in a way that makes new opportunities to utilize content available to students at a low cost or at no cost, that does promote faculty creativity and faculty innovation. We're pleased to do that. And it recognizes, I think, that students like my 8-year-old will be coming to our institutions expecting to participate in creating their learning experiences. And we're starting down that pathway a little bit. In conclusion, I want to, before I share some of the OER repositories with our online audience and with you folks here, I want to share also some other resources about open education resources and the open education movement. I think many of your institutions in here have been members over the years of the Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources, CCC OER. That was the organization founded by Foothill de Anza Community College District, founded by Martha Cantor and Judy Baker to represent community college interests in the open ed movement and to promote open ed within community colleges nationally. That organization is now merging with the Open Courseware Consortium. And Open Courseware Consortium, or OCWC, is was the original organization behind MIT Open Courseware. It's an international organization, has professional staff, very substantial grant funding, really first-rate organization, and CCC OER is merging with that organization to be with the aim of being a unique voice for community and technical colleges within the open ed movement, but also going in the direction of at least one of our comments indicated it may be necessary, and that is trying to unify the movement rather than have multiple strands of the open ed movement. And if you are with a community college and would like to join Open Courseware Consortium, if you check the box that on their membership page, check the box that says you're joining as a member of CCC OER, then your dues are less than they otherwise would be because you'd be joining as a community college member of that consortium. So that is an option that's out there. And look for more announcements about that. I think a press release just went out earlier in the week that's out on some of the education wires or business wires about this, and more information will be coming in over the summer. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and open it up for questions here, and try to remember to share the repository information with the online audience as well. Any questions, suggestions? Anyone who want to share what you're doing at your institution with open content or open education? Doug?
Just kind of a funny anecdote. About 3 or 4 years ago, I used to be charged with the responsibility of orienting new faculty. And I would take them around. As one of the things I did, I'd take them around campus and I'd take them to the bookstore. We run our own bookstore. We had a bookstore manager who actually works for the college for this thing. And he was doing the spiel on trying to reduce the cost of textbooks. And then he was showing the course packs. And I said, well, now that we have a learning management system that's ubiquitous, you might consider creating your own electronic course packs and then providing them within the context of your learning management system. And the bookstore manager looked at me and says, what, are you trying to put me out of business? And so I tell that story only because, well, one, it's extremely embarrassing. Two, mostly because earlier you mentioned that this has to be done and satisfy everyone. And I think that's got to be the tough part of it for you, is for everybody to feel like they're benefiting from it.
Yes. The observation from the floor here, in a project like this, everyone needs to feel satisfied, and that is challenging, certainly. At College of Canyons, again, we're extremely fortunate to have the vocal public support of our executive leaderships. That paves the way a lot. But that does not answer the question of an individual faculty member's workload. That does not answer the question of how much am I going to get paid for this and where's the money going to come from. Right? It can help acquire those resources, but it doesn't answer those questions. So we've actually, in our situation, I think we're pretty far along in terms of faculty members utilizing open textbooks in their classes. I can point to our Soc 1 and a number of our psych classes, which are some of the highest enrolled courses on campus. They use open textbooks. So hundreds and hundreds of students are saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars every semester. We've got probably a dozen faculty members involved in this playlist project. We've got probably, I'd say, 50 or so faculty members who are using some pieces, some learning objects, open source learning objects in their courses. OER and promoting open education as a means of promoting student access is in our district's strategic plan. That's pretty phenomenal, considering that we started down this path in 2007. But that's still 5 years, or four years of working on a cultural shift in talking about these things. So I think institutionally we've come a long way, but we've been doing this, we've been talking about it for a while. So it has not been easy, certainly. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
I noticed you posted the repositories or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to add one.
Great.
Google GAMP search. If you click the Google GAMP search and then you click usage rights, you can click the Creative Commons licenses.
Oh, great.
And it searches all the repositories at once.
Also, OER Commons. And also in Flickr, you can do the same. You can go to advanced search in Flickr and select the Creative Commons rights there. Then that content may or may not be licensed. It may or may not be. Oh, it picks that up too? Great. So it may or may not be educational content specifically, but it's content that has been created with the intent of sharing. You know, that's really remarkable. Again, as the keynote pointed out this morning, we've moved away from this whole question of how do I keep it to myself, because I think that my lecture on George Washington is going to make me $1 million someday. You know, it's beyond me. But I certainly do run into that attitude. To having a licensing regime in Creative Commons that delineates how we're going to share. That's really remarkable. And that we're at this conference, again, the program committee, you know, congratulations to the program committee on identifying open education as a theme or a strand in the conference. That's remarkable, that it's well known enough, or we're conversant enough in it to have it appear here. Was there a question in the back?
Well, a kind of a comment. Being 63 years old, I remember back in the day that my next instructors wrote their own textbooks.
Yes.
So I don't really see this as anything particularly new, just in terms of making a new environment for it, maybe a much easier environment for it than it was. But it was always just those very few faculty who were doing that.
Yes.
Maybe that creme de la creme of the faculty, the top 10%. So how do we get more faculty to participate in doing this, I think is the question.
Great.
Can it be made part of their expected findings or something?
That's the non-tenured one.
Yeah. Great comment I want to share with the folks online. Great comment from a gentleman who self-identified as 63 years old. Said he remembers back in the day that some of his faculty, some of his best teachers would write their own textbooks. And what happened to that? It doesn't seem like such a new idea to write your own textbook. But I think in the intervening years, the business model in educational publishing has changed substantially. How many educational publishers are there out there anymore? 3, 4, 5, I don't know. Not that many. So there might not be that many opportunities for folks to do that these days. And what the open ed movement can do is to give a structure to folks who are interested in doing that, and with the promise that that your material will be discovered far beyond your campus, that your material will be discovered around the United States, if not around the world. If you really do bring your heart and soul to it with the idea that you want to share, you want to open access to education, and that's why you're doing it, then isn't it more promising? Isn't it more appealing if you're going to be able to share this with, hundreds of thousands or millions of people?
So where is it written that the faculty have to be generating this content? I had a very successful colleague that used to have his students generate an introduction to computers textbook, and they competed to see who could do the best job and the most thorough job of finding the best content on the internet and including it in their introduction to computers textbook that they submitted for their grade.
I'm sure
it was a semester-long course, and that was the semester-long project that they did.
I bet we're heading towards that path. And the comment was, what about students creating content? What about students competing to see who can create the best content so that can be included in the course pack? I'm looking at Michelle, and I don't know if Michelle's going to be talking about that tomorrow. No, but this whole, again, I think it goes back to this whole question, or this whole cultural shift towards participation, from control and structure to openness, and that's the structured openness. We want the best content, we want a structure, but let's crowdsource that structure, and let's crowdsource that content.
Yeah, Tim from the Bristol, so it seems like a conflict of interest, I think, is referring to instructors writing books, requiring the purchase of their own book. But I like the idea of the students.
Yeah, well, to the question of requiring the purchase of your own book, I have to say that the chair of my tenure committee, his textbook was always on my syllabus as long as I was going through tenure.
Being pretty lazy, I used to do something similar to that. I used to teach non-linear editing, and I had a syllabus, and so we knew what we were going to do. And each week we answered, like, let's say 3 different topics, mini topics, and I would assign, or students would choose, which of the topics they would want to deliver, and their job was to, because we're doing video editing, they'd actually create a little movie about it. And so over the course of teaching it for a few years, I was able to bubble to the top the best examples of each of those and put them together. And now I had this whole sort of repository of little student videos. I would argue that students tend to learn better from each other than from us. So, but we had a textbook, so this was before I was even thinking about open educational resources.
Right. So another example was shared of collecting the best work of students every semester, so that you have this great collection of student work after some period of time. And the student is acting as a teacher. Then your student's modeling the best way to do something or the best output. And then the question becomes, institutionally, where do you put that stuff then? What if you do have that collection of great content? Where do you put that content so that it can be discovered by other institutions? And we're not there yet. Michelle.
I just wanted to reflect. I mean, it seems to me like what we're doing is we're moving away from the traditional model of a textbook, a lecture, and student learning, right? And where we're headed is we need to start thinking of the textbook, the lecture, whatever, the website, the podcast, that it's content. It's learning content.
It's all content.
And the more we all are empowered to become content creators, then we're moving into a model where this is a participatory model where we're learning from each other. So, I mean, I love the idea of creating content that's written by multiple authors. So, if I'm using content that isn't created by me, then I can learn from, multiple historians versus just a singular author who authored a traditional book. So, I don't know, I'm trying to strip away these traditional words like lecture and textbook and just think more about it as content, and it should help me kind of muddle through this interesting moment we're in the middle of.
Yes, another comment points out that we're in the middle of this interesting moment of everything becoming content. We have to strip away the traditional notion of lecture, lab, textbook, and everything's content, or everything's interaction, for that matter, ideally.
We had a conversation the other day, not to throw a wrench in the works, but on measuring our success, and part of our success is do the students learn the material, which is, I think, what we're all interested in, right? But another part of our success is do our students succeed when they transfer to the university environment where they will sit in a lecture hall and have a content expert, but not a teacher, a researcher, spew information, the best, most recent version of information to them, and somehow they have to learn that without people like us who actually care about whether they learn it or not helping them. Mm-hmm. So I think we have a duty to teach students how to suck that information out when it isn't served up. I don't know how to express that.
Yeah, an intriguing comment.
There was no solution presented for it. It was just like, how do we do that?
An intriguing comment from the audience that we not only want our students to learn the material, but also we want our students to be able to succeed when they go to transfer institutions at which the material might not be given as interactive a way as we want to present it.
You said that better than me.
Well,
Or we
that's,
can make the counter argument that says institutions to change their learning model.
that's right. Well, and there's certainly been, I mean, I think most of us know there's been a big shift over, the past 20 years from the stereotype stage on the stage to the guide on the side, and then we've changed from my teaching to your learning, and now, even though we may be mired in student learning outcomes, and even though that may present us with tons more paperwork, I hope that we can all see the benefit of focusing on what the student is actually learning. So there certainly has been a shift over the years away from the stage towards the actual student learning experience, and this may be another part of that. And it certainly will present, as we insert tweets and videos and who knows what else into our classes, we're going to present a lot of head-scratching to our institutional researchers when we ask them to measure how our students are learning. That's going to maybe be the next puzzle on our campuses. Is once we put this thing all back together in these new ways, how do we measure what's going on there? I don't know. At any rate, I want to say thank you to all of you for your attention in the postprandial slot or the nap time slot. I appreciate the chocolate dessert that kept you going for this past hour. I appreciate Michelle from CCC Confer for her nimble facilitation, and thanks to CCC Confer folks, and again, thanks to the Chancellor's Office for continuing to support CCC Confer's work with the California Community College System to all of our benefit. Really appreciate that. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. And